Stop trying to copy Zoe Kravitz style and do this instead. Here's my train of thought on Zoe Kravitz style.
My worst look in life, I definitely went through a phase in my early 20s where I was very into vests, and I would wear them with like leggings and boots. I was very confused. Recently, my friend found like an old digital camera from the early 2000s. What is this? Who let me do this? I look like Peter Pan's psychotic cousin.
Zoe Kravitz style exists in two realms, very casual and very glam, making her my kind of girl. She ends up on mood boards for both of these styles, so we're going to explore both. My first stop is going to be the beat generation of the 1950s, often known as beatniks, which began as a derogatory term. The beat generation were focused on rebelling against mainstream American culture. They represented the political left. And the way they rebelled was through the arts, so they were heavily integrated with poetry. I think poetry is what you mainly think of when you think of beatniks, but literature, music, especially jazz, art, painting, all of that. But the beatniks had a very specific uniform that was used to cast them aside from the masses. They typically dressed in all black, other than the Breton stripes, or a marinerie, as they call it. But it was a lot of tight black trousers, tight black pencil skirts, wide black belts, black shirts, and of course, the beret. Another interesting thing about the beatniks is they often opted for short and very flat hairstyles, maybe a precursor to the mods that came later. Facets of the beatnik uniform stood the test of time, and we still see them in fashion today and looked at as classic pieces. The look, however, outlives the movement that kind of faded out in the 1960s when the hippie generation came around, which is interesting because of course we have to talk about hippie because Zoe Kravitz's mum is Lisa Bonet. Now, Lisa is obviously most known for her role in The Cosby Show, but she became very popular for her fashion throughout the 80s and 90s. Her look was extremely bohemian. You'd see her in all different mixing prints, a lot of loose long silhouettes, the small round glasses, the waist length locks. And I think when it comes to Nepo babies, it's very important to look back at how their parents were dressing throughout their lives because you know that these kids have full access to their parents' wardrobes. And I know from interviewing fashion's favourite faces on my podcast, The Fashion Nap, that 99% of people, when I ask them what's their earliest fashion memory, say their mum or their grandma. I would say the most obvious influence on Zoe from Lisa is the boho braids that she's so famous for. That's like her signature style. There are thousands of TikToks and shorts out on how to get the Zoe Kravitz braids. The funniest one and the best one, I cannot remember who made it, but there was this video that was like in the peak of people trying to decode exactly what she gets done to her hair. And someone was like, why don't you try just keeping your braids in for longer than 3 weeks? True.
My hair journey has been like quite the hair journey, and I think probably a lot of brown girls can identify with that, brown people, because like we're basically taught to hate our hair. I used to relax my hair, which is really bad, and it would break off, and like actually I think it ends up looking like a little funny on me, or like, and then also like it grows out really quickly. And so the braids have been just a really great way to like protect my hair and be able to be playful with it but not put any chemicals in it. And then lately for films I've been doing wigs, which is great. Like cornrow my hair, put on a wig, ba-bam.
And I know I was talking about mums and grandmas, but in this instance, we cannot count out the influence of Lenny Kravitz. Now, Lenny Kravitz was a trailblazer and a risk taker in fashion. He is known for his tight leather outfits. He's not afraid to show some skin, and he definitely walks the line of gender in his wardrobe.
I've seen your incredible dedication to your art, but mostly I've seen through your shirts. According to my dad, if it doesn't expose your nipples, it's not a shirt. And sure, it used to embarrass me when you'd pick me up from school as a kid, but I gotta say at this point, I respect it. You really do pull it off. Your relationship with the netted shirt is probably your longest one, and it works.
What's funny about this clip is not only are they both wearing dark glasses to give speeches, but it's not like Zoe Kravitz is a stranger to a sheer shirt herself. Interestingly about Lenny Kravitz that I see in Zoe Kravitz is even when he's doing a casual look, it's still very much a fashion moment and there's still very much traces of his more ostentatious looks. In this High Snobiety article, Lenny talks about how his mum was really supportive of his gender-bending fashions. Him and his friends when they were younger were like, oh my god, your mum's gonna freak when she sees this. But she was like, if you're gonna wear that skirt, you need to change your shoes. So I would like to hope that Zoe was raised with the same encouragement to experiment with her fashion. And maybe that's why we see her move so freely through different aesthetics. Of course, Zoe Kravitz is and has been for the longest time now the face of Saint Laurent. And I think that mysterious, sultry energy that we think of when we think of Zoe Kravitz fits perfectly with the Saint Laurent brand.
What Makes Nancy So Great by Sydney. 1. Beautiful. 2. Sexy. 3. Beautiful figure. 4. Great sense of humor.
Yves Saint Laurent always had a talent for making these androgynous but super sexy women through his clothes. And we saw that with muses like Betty Cartrot and the recent Saint Laurent collection where they had everybody wearing suits dressed up to look like Yves Saint Laurent himself harks back to this androgynous nature. One thing I do want to mention about the history of the brand is that Yves Saint Laurent was known for being a pioneer when it came to using black models in his fashion shows throughout the 70s and 80s. He was actually the first designer to put a black model in a couture fashion show. Her name was Munya. She was a long-time muse for Yves Saint Laurent, but the great thing was she wasn't the only one. So often we see the only black model on the catwalk. And Yves would use plenty, and Asian models too. He had actually very diverse catwalks. I made a whole video about this on TikTok if you're interested. But back to Zoe. I often see people drawing parallels between Zoe Kravitz and Audrey Hepburn, especially since she's been working with Saint Laurent and doing these all black looks, but especially since she took her braids out and started wearing these short cropped hairstyles that I guess are reminiscent of Audrey in Funny Face. Now, the interesting thing about this, we're about to have a full circle moment, is that these famous Audrey Hepburn looks that people love so much actually have residual traits of, yes, the Beat generation. Audrey's look was very post-beatnik at this time. And if we're going to tap into the androgynous elegance of Yves Saint Laurent, now Saint Laurent, and Audrey Hepburn, then we cannot bypass the influence of Sade. I feel like I talk about Sade in every single video, but she is just the eternal muse. And I think we can definitely see that with some of Zoe's looks. But as I said at the start of this video, Zoe Kravitz has two very strong styles. Of course, we see her in these gorgeous glam moments, but she definitely has a more relaxed and chill, tomboyish element to her style, which I also love. I feel like we've seen her borrow from skate culture. You could look at somebody like pro skater Brianna King for more style inspo if this is more your thing. Even more so, you can look at one of my favourite dressers ever, Diana Gordon. I think she has such good style. And she has that same duality in her style as Zoe Kravitz. And her styles overlap in the middle to create these very rich, eclectic looks where you kind of never know what she's going to wear next. Of course, she has this style that I think is very New York. But what I like about Diana is that she also takes inspiration from the goth scene. And it all just comes together so well. Endless style inspiration. Apart from that she archived loads of her posts. But still, go on Google. Endless style inspiration. Another thing that I noticed about Zoe Kravitz is that she has a kind of makeup uniform. You never really see her switch up her beauty too much. And that reminds me of Sophia Loren. Sophia Loren isn't just known for her acting talents and her beauty, but when you think of Sophia Loren, you get a very strong image in your head, and 9 times out of 10, that strong image has this kind of double wings liner with the lighter colour in the middle. We can close our eyes and we're probably thinking about the same Sophia Loren image, and I feel like Zoe has that aspect to her beauty looks too. We love a uniform. Actors can be hard to dissect because a lot of the characters they play influence their dress, especially now that the way people are doing press tours has got a bit out of hand and they kind of live as the character and breathe as the character until the film is out and all the premieres are over. But then sometimes that makes it easy to analyse actors because you see little bits of their characters that stay with them past the premieres. And I noticed with Zoe when she did that complex interview with Channing Tatum, are they still together? She had her hair in these 2 little buns that were reminiscent of cat ears, obviously a nod to her Catwoman role. I think her character in High Fidelity dressed pretty much how Zoe Kravitz dresses when she's in her casual mode. I would not be surprised if there were pieces that were borrowed from her wardrobe. But yeah, that's my train of thought on Zoe Kravitz style. As usual, assess everything, see what resonates, go to your own wardrobe, play, and let me know how it goes. Bye!